It's same old song and dance. Not enough bodies last night. Brunson out. Randall out still. OG still out. Mitchell Robinson still out. The Knicks lose. Let's talk. Episode 639 of the podcast. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. You are listening to BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, MMA on occasion. Let's get to it.
Anthony for three. Bang! That one goes down, and the game is tied.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
The Yankees are champions of baseball. Shaking and baking right here on the neophyte.
Trying to close the show.
She was doing a great job of feeding.
That is it.
It's over.
Don't you regret not coming to the Knicks? Don't you regret not coming to the Knicks?
Game over. World Series over. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
All right. Yeah, it sucks. Hanging in there. Not giving up. Like I said, I would be a fool to, after last episode, go back to what I said and give up on them. Last episode, I said I'm kind of back in after that Brunson news and performance they had after. So I'm not going to quit on them. I want to have hope. I'm trying to have hope. Not going to completely take myself out like I did prior to the Cavs game. But like it's goddamn is it tough, goddamn is it tough. Last night the Knicks lost to the Magic. Was it I think 116-100. Brunson was a DNP, expected after the knee injury, the contusion. Randall, we got news that he could be back before OG Anunoby. That was from Begley. Interesting. Man, the OG stuff just gets more concerning every time he has an update. For the Hawks, they were without Trae Young. In the first quarter, this kind of started off to a lesser extent, like the Golden State game did, where the Knicks just provided no offense. They were scoreless until the 8.5 mark, 8:26 to be precise, was when they got their first point. It was a Hartenstein free throw. Didn't get their first basket until even further after that. The process was good. Like, they were generating open looks. They just were not executing to start the game. And after one quarter, they were down 33-15. It was 18, but they did take one of those Bojan Bogdanovic three-pointers away since he was stepping out of bounds. Great job there. The two Detroit guys just continuing to make their mark in a negative way. Second quarter, Atlanta goes up by as many as 22 points, but the Knicks make a late run. Dante DiVincenzo, Deuce McBride, Bogey, knocking down some big threes together. Precious Achiuwa had himself a huge second quarter. Big baskets near the end. Talk about him in a second. And at halftime, it's 61-50 Atlanta. In the third quarter, the Hawks kept it on. They kept pouring on points, but the Knicks kept in it, and they make a late run. You have a bunch of baskets, but the Deuce McBride slam kind of got the Garden going. Josh Hart gets hot. He knocks down a free throw to tie the game. Later ties it again off of a jumper. I think it was a jumper. But he tied the game twice, and going into the fourth, it was 83-78, the Hawks. Fourth quarter comes, and the two Detroit guys just playing awful again, not getting it done. You had another run where Josh Hart comes through. He had a very bad first half, but like as soon as he took his first shot midway through the third, he found it a little bit, and He had a couple of big-time three-pointers midway through the fourth to help the Knicks pull it to 4. But their defense just could not get the job done. And so they'd eventually again lose by 16 points. 116-100 to the Hawks. Dante DiVincenzo led the Knicks with 21 points. Then it was Bojan Bogdanovic with 19 and Precious with 15. For the Hawks, Jalen Johnson, good young player, led the team with 26 points. Then it was DeAndre Hunter with 22 points. And then DeJounte Murray, 21 points. Couple themes from last night, but I would say it came down to size and fatigue. That affected the Knicks on both ends, offensively and defensively. It affected the way they went about things offensively. Defensively, it affected the rotations, like the lineups that Thibs went with. And I think that's going to be our first topic here in episode 638. 639. I want to talk about this is a decision that everybody, there's always a Thibs talking point every night, which is amazing that with 4 of his starters missing, he still finds his way trending on Twitter. It's amazing how Knicks fans can be. I mean, I guess fans of every team are like this, but it's amazing. People are never going to be thankful. They're always going to go to criticism first. But you know what? I last night, the decision to pretty much sit Precious Achiuwa the entire fourth quarter until the end there when it didn't matter. He sat Precious down the stretch, and he chose to go to Bojan Bogdanovic. So Precious Achiuwa was having a big game. Bojan Bogdanovic not so much, and that pissed some fans off that he chose Precious. So we'll talk about that decision as soon as we return from our first break here on the show, episode 639 of BD4. Be right back. Stay with us.
Hey there. Thanks for listening in so far. If you enjoy this episode, please give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks so much.
Yeah, so last night's loss, 116-100, a big talking point was that fourth quarter. Why Tom Thibodeau did what he did. Why did he choose to sit Precious down the stretch, who was having a big game? Precious Achiuwa was scoring the ball at will, really. He was getting in transition. He was getting downhill, bullying Jalen Johnson off the dribble, drives, face-ups, post-ups. They were getting him into actions that they would normally incorporate Julius in, and he was on the boards. He was scoring the ball, did a really good job. Finishes with 15 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, a block. He was 7 of 8 from the floor, and he was a +3 to lead the Knicks, the only plus in the box score. Big time second quarter. He had a big third quarter to help the Knicks pull within maybe 5 or 6 points at the time. He was a big part of that. He was their best player last night, and he sat for most of the fourth quarter. He went back to him way too late. I would agree. I would have liked to see him out there, go with the hot hand. Thibs' reasoning, he wanted offense. He wanted spacing. The defense was sagging off Precious Achiuwa. And if you went with Precious, you would have had Josh Hart, Precious, and a big. You got 3 non-spacers on the floor right there, plus the defense was going below the screen on deuce pick and rolls. So, I guess the counter to that would be, why not play Precious and Bojan together? I would have liked to see that. I've been advocating for this duo because I think both of them play pick and roll pretty well together when they share the floor. I think Bogey does an adequate job as a pick and roll initiator, especially on the empty side. I think he's shifty. I think he's able to probe the defense, kind of like Quickly used to do when he ran pick and roll. He can get downhill, Boyan can, especially against a drop defender on the empty side. With his big body, he's able to do that. And I think Precious does a really nice job as a roller. He's able to collapse the defense on a cut, or even when he has the ball, he can put it on the floor and attack. So I thought that would have been a nice tandem to go to in the fourth quarter. It didn't have to be mutually exclusive where you sit Precious because of Bogey. But I think Tom Thibodeau's thought process was, well, if I was to play them together, Precious would be at the 5. And this is something I've been very against. Precious at the 5 is super undersized. And the Knicks, last night, they were getting killed all night on the glass, and their rim protection was very poor. Atlanta has a ton of size up front with Clint Capella, and they have a lot of big wings. I just feel like they out-rebounded the Knicks 51-40. How many games are the Knicks getting out-rebounded by double figures? They won the paint game 56 points to 40. They felt like they got all the 50-50 balls, all the loose balls. The Knicks felt like they were playing a little soft. Josh Hart could tell he was gassed because he's been playing a ton of minutes. Didn't have the same energy on those loose balls. And, if you're going to play Precious, sorry, had a brain cramp there, it would have been at the 5. Now you can tell me, what about playing Bogey at wing, Precious at 4, and then maybe iHeart at 5? Like, okay, but he was pretty bad out there. He didn't look good, and he's been pretty underwhelming since the Achilles injury. Over the last month plus, he's not been the same player. And he's also on a minutes restriction. And then what are you left with? Going with Jericho Sims, who's even more undersized at 5? Again, the Knicks were getting bitched down low. So you're asking Bojan Bogdanovic to defend wings? I mean, that's fucking he's brutal as it is right now when he's defending 4s. Bogey has the slowest feet possible. I've never seen a player with slower feet. Maybe Kyle Anderson, and that's where the list ends. But this is a guy who can't stay in front of his man. He can't get to loose balls quickly. He has difficulty rotating and closing out. And Atlanta was hunting him on switches and those pull-ups with DeJounte late. I don't... Like, his defense has been so bad, it's going to make him unplayable in fourth quarters come the playoffs if the Knicks make it. So, like, if you took Bogey out completely and it was just... If it was mutually exclusive, and it's back to what I initially said, which Hart, wing, Precious at the 4, and then a big. Again, now there are no floor spacers out there. So, in my humble opinion, it's a lose-lose, and it will continue to be a lose-lose for Coach Tom Thibodeau until / if the Knicks ever get healthy. So I'm not sweating over that decision. I understand it. I even side with those people. But I do think there comes a point where it's like, yeah, but you can understand it. Yeah, you have to be able to see both sides with what this rotation is looking like right now. And, with that size disadvantage that the Knicks are working with right now, that's a reason why they ran offense so poorly. They actually generated some good looks in the first half of this game, but I felt like they started to settle in the second half, partially because they were gassed, yes, but like they were affected by the size disadvantage down low. In this game, the Knicks took the second most three-point attempts, and they missed the second most three-point attempts in franchise history. They were 31% on 52 attempts. Abysmal. There was a lid on the basket, and it didn't matter to them. They just kept shooting. They were only 49% in the paint. They had 8 less attempts in the paint from the field. They had 12 less free throw attempts. This is also what happens when you don't have any gravity out there. Something we've spoken on. You didn't have Brunson's gravity. You didn't have Julius Randle. You had nobody who can create spacing on the post, on drives, off pick and roll, to be able to create easier looks. And that's going to lead to guys settling for three-point attempts. Dante DiVincenzo was 5 for 17. Deuce McBride was 3 for 10. Bojan Bogdanovic was 4 for 11. And Alec Burks was 1 for 7. Burks, oh my God. Burks has been abysmal. He's become unplayable. This is a backup point guard we're talking about. This is your backup point guard, and yet he's shooting out of rhythm. He's just zero clock management last night in the first quarter from your backup point guard. He takes a contested mid-range shot with 7 seconds to go on the shot clock late in the first. And then, not long after, he refuses to advance the ball up the court, and he waits until the buzzer sounds to take that last second heave. I don't even think he shot it. Maddening watching this guy. And I was wrong. I thought they'd be able to get by with minimal minutes. He's been playing 10, 12 minutes lately. I thought they'd be able to get by with that at point guard. Nope. It's gotten so bad where, like, he's playing 10, 11, 12 minutes in games without Brunson, and we had to go out there and sign Shake Milton to a minimum off the scrap heap. Like, that's how bad it's gotten with Alec Burks. The Knicks are seeing it. There's a reason for all that. They're seeing it. He's not been good. And Deuce McBride, God bless him, he's having himself a hell of a year. He's earning every penny of the extension he just got. And he's doing a nice job for them. But he's also not a point guard. He's just not a point guard. My God, is he not? He has trouble breaking down a defense. You know, he's not the greatest scorer at the first two levels. He could occasionally attack the empty side. He's improved his mid-range game off the dribble. But for the most part, he's not running offense like a point. He can't run offense. He's a small wing. He's unathletic. He's undersized. But he handles the point of attack very well. He can defend there. And he plays exceptionally in that off-wing role. Exceptionally. Right? And we saw some good point guard things for sure last night with Deuce. I thought he made some good reads. I thought he got downhill and collapsed the defense a few times. His pick and roll gravity lately has been there. And he threw down that slam. You know? But for the most part, he's just not an effective point guard. And that's why you need Jalen Brunson healthy as soon as possible. So Deuce can play off the ball more and not have to be relied on to play backup point guard, because the guy they got to play backup point guard cannot do it in Alec Burks. And everybody's just off their rolls right now because of these injuries. And it's getting to a scary point. It's getting to a scary point, and I want to talk about that when we return from break, because we got some things to discuss regarding the future of this team as far as 2024 goes. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You can follow us on social media as well. On Instagram, we're at BD4Pod and at Rob J. Carbone. On X, we're at BD4Pod and at RJCBD4. And on Facebook, we're BD4. If you're interested in our website, just go to www.bd4blog.com. You can subscribe to our blog on there right on the front page, just like on the podcast. We cover Yankees, Knicks, and MMA. Also on our website are the links to the different platforms for the podcast. Thanks so much.
Yeah, things are getting scary, folks. You got the Knicks now in a spot where they've officially been pushed off the 4 spot. As I currently speak, and it's Wednesday, March 6th, about 8 p.m., the Magic have the 4 seed. The Knicks have the 5 seed. Miami has the 6 seed, behind the Knicks by a half game. Philly has the 7 seed behind the Knicks by a half game. And Indiana has the 8 seed by a game and a half behind the Knicks. The Knicks have Orlando on Friday. They have Philly on Sunday and then Philly again on Tuesday. 3 of the biggest games so far this year by miles. It's going to feel like a playoff game. It's going to be at the Garden. I'm sure it's going to be insane there. Those are huge games. You have to find a way, especially now with this loss. This was supposed to be their gimme, quote unquote. Now you have to take 2 or 3. You got to find a way to take 2. Win Orlando and split Philly. Whatever. You have to find a way to take 2 of these. And it just continues to be like when healthy. But there's still no time. There's still no specific timetable, no date of return for any of these guys. Still. We're months into this now. We're over a month into this. It's like, when the fuck will we actually finally see Julius out there? OG Anunoby out there. Mitchell Robinson, who's been out for months and there's still no timetable there. Will Brunson play in any of these next 3 games? Will everybody even come back? Like, is there going to be all of OG, Randall, Mitch, and Brunson sharing the floor together? And not just that, but will they all come back in time to gel before the playoffs begin? Because these guys, OG, Anunoby, Robinson, have missed significant time. These aren't short layoffs. No, they've missed significant time, and they're coming off some pretty serious injuries. So will they be as effective when they return? Randall with the shoulder. He plays a very physical game on the post. Mitchell Robinson, we know he's usually a guy who takes a bit to get going again, to get back into shape, to get his conditioning right. It's always been like that with Mitch. Lanky dude coming off a leg injury. Like, I'm not expecting much from Mitch if he even returns. I'm still worried about Isaiah Hartenstein and the Achilles because clearly that's been affecting him. His season's kind of going downhill. He's not been the same player for a little bit. And, will everybody come back in time to save the Knicks from falling to a play-in? You have to worry about that. It's not just getting right for the playoffs. You have to make sure you avoid that play-in. There are only, I believe, 20 regular season games left for the Knicks. I mean, just a month ago, this was a team on pace to win 55 games, and they were knocking on the door from that 2 seed. Now the Knicks sit in a spot where I think they're on pace for 47, 48 wins, and they're currently a half game back from being out of a playoff spot. So it is amazing how quickly. I know we've beaten this drum a ton of times, but yeah, and you got tonight where currently Orlando is playing the Wizards, who are arguably the worst team in basketball, and you got Philly playing the worst team in the West in the Memphis Grizzlies in Philly. So Jesus Christ, is this next week going to be huge for the Knicks, and it could really depict where they land. So I think that's it. We'll hand out really briefly because we already talked about Precious. Well, he'll get the game ball among the starters.
Bing bang.
Good for him. He had himself a hell of a game. 15.6 boards, like we said. 7 of 8. That's now 6 game balls. 6 game balls on the year for Precious. 2 as a starter, 4 as a reserve. Remember, he's only been with the Knicks since the OG deal. But he's been the guy now. Like, OG's only played. It's crazy. OG only has played, less than 15 games or something like that? Like Jesus. Missed the guy. Precious gets it. We said everything we had to say on his minutes. Jericho Sims. I'm giving him the Bing Bong game ball off the bench. I think everybody else sucked. Was not impressed with Boyan. Was not impressed with Burks. So Jericho gets it. He had 9 rebounds last night, 6 offensive rebounds. So I love the effort he was displaying, the hustle. His athleticism in the restricted area always pays off, the putbacks and the second chance. Drew a couple of whistles. Tough time protecting the basket. Tough time on those short pull-ups. But he's undersized. That's 3 game balls for Jericho on the year. All of them have come as a reserve. So good for him. And that's it. And we will wrap this up when we return from our final break here on BD4, episode 639. Stay with us. Be back in a few minutes.
If you're interested in our website, just go to www.bd4blog.com. You can subscribe to our blog on there right on the front page. Just like on the podcast, we cover Yankees, Knicks, and MMA. Also on our website are the links to the different platforms for the podcast. Thanks so much.
Studio 69 Productions is a podcast production agency created by Leo Rodriguez to allow content creators to market their podcast. It's an online platform that will market your podcast or any other project that you're working on. Get in touch with Leo Rodriguez from Studio 69 Productions. You can find Studio 69 Productions on Instagram at Studio69NJ. Studio 69 Productions, where dreams are heard and born.
Thanks for listening to BD4, where there is no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA, Yanks every series, Knicks every game, and MMA on occasion.
All right. Yeah, I think that's it. Like, before we get to our trivia, I'm hanging with them. I'm hoping they can get through this, and I'm hoping the best case scenario does play out. Just feel like it's a low percentage, but I'm going to hang on to them, and I'm going to hope that they can get there. I think, I was thinking about this the other day, real briefly. I'll talk about this. Not that this really matters, but, I've seen this question floating around a little bit. Who is, like, if I could pick one, or who makes the most impact? Like, if I were to pick one guy to return between OG, Julius, and Mitch, considering Brunson's going to be back soon, who am I picking? And I think it comes down to, I love Mitch, but it's going to come down to OG or Julius for me. Just because we have the depth at center to where iHeart, if he does eventually get right, will be great. Precious has been good, and Sims has actually done a nice job as a tertiary big. So I feel like the bigs can figure it out. But coming down to Precious or OG, it's like, well, do you want the best player? Or, like, do you feel like... I feel like OG Anunoby makes the biggest impact just because OG came here and the Knicks were a terrible defense. And then he comes here and they become the best defense in basketball. In my opinion, he makes them that. He's a versatile wing who changes everybody else's roles. You're able to play certain lineups with OG, right? Boyan can now play more often. You're able to utilize his shooting because you put OG out there, and now Boyan's not playing with another poor defender, right? You could put OG out there who's a two-way wing. You could do different lineups with that. He has these lineups where you could throw out there now with OG and Mitch and Deuce. Like, that would be interesting. Or OG and iHeart or and Deuce. Like, some really good lineups that you could start throwing out there. OG and Bogey and Julius and Deuce. Like, you could do some really good two-way lineups, with OG, just because of his ability to play both sides of the ball. So I think that's the guy you're missing most right now. Obviously, Randall, you need his 25 and 10. And I hope that he comes back and he's able to be that type of player before the postseason, and he doesn't go into another playoff with an injury bothering his play. So that was something I was thinking about the other day, and I just wanted to give my thoughts on that. But with that said, I think we can wrap this thing up with our trivia question, and then that will be that. Let's get to it. All right. Episode 639 here. 639, our trivia question of the day. In 24 career games versus the Knicks, playoffs included, how many times has Trae Young shot below 50% from the field? All right, in 24 career games versus the Knicks, how many times has Trae Young shot below 50% from the field, playoffs included? All right, so let me know the answer wherever you can reach me. If you get the answer correct, I'll give you a shout out in the next episode. But for this episode, that's it, folks. Appreciate you all tuning in very much. 639 is in the books. I'm your host, RJ Carbone, and I will see you in episode 640. Could be Knicks Magic. If I can get an episode in talking about the Yankees, either tomorrow, Thursday, or early Friday, I'll try. But if not, 640 will be Knicks Magic. All right. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it as always, and I'll see you in the next show. This episode was brought to you by Anchor.
Hey there! If you stayed the entire way through, we thank you immensely for it. We hope you enjoyed this podcast and that you come back for the next episode real soon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, download these episodes, and share them with your friends as well. BD4 is a 5-star podcast simply because of you. And we'd like to keep it that way. Have a wonderful day. Go Yankees and go Knicks.